We're live here at Remax Ready here in Conshohocken Studios, 1RR here in Conshohocken.
R squared.
It's bright and early 9 p.m. on a Monday night here. How you feeling?
I'm all right, considering it's 9 o'clock. I just got up from my nap.
So here we're going to talk about some first-time buyer stuff live tonight, answer some questions. Certainly some buyers out there who kind of feel like they know most of the answers, and maybe just peek in just to grab a couple things here and there. And there's also some first-time buyers, which is totally fine out there, who just don't know where to start, don't have any idea, and just want to get the process started and answer some of those questions.
Yeah, I know a few know-it-alls, in my world. So this is more for the. No, just kidding. This is more, as Matt's saying, this is more for. Information and those that are looking for a little bit of education if they're embarking on a real estate process, real estate purchasing. Let's hop in.
So thanks for being live with us. As my great friend H. Foley says, share it up and share it out there from Center City Comedy. Check him out. And we're going to jump right in. He's Eric Grayling. I'm Matt Mittman. And it's 2017. I'm going to start you with an easy one.
All right.
There's a new president out there, which means new people.
This is easy.
Which means new people are coming in, new monetary policy. We've seen a rise in rates. And my question for you is 2017 the right time to buy if I'm a first-time buyer? I'm living at home, I'm renting an apartment. Is it the best year to buy?
Well, of course, I'm a real estate agent, right? This is live from R2. Now, in all seriousness, the most important thing with this answer for a first-time home buyer is that you do it when the time's right. Okay, rates are going to go up. In the 70s, rates were over 20%. I think it was the 70s or early 80s. Don't audit me. This is a non-Google zone, by the way. Now, in the late 70s, 80s, rates were really high. And then rates have been, as low as under 3. And then rates have been anywhere in between. So the market's going to be the market. Prices are going to go up relative to what the interest rate is. Prices are going to go down relative to what the interest rate is. But it's most important that you have your timing right. Now, objectively, let's talk about what's going on. So, as Matt alluded to, from the day after the election to up until about 10 days ago, rates were on a steady climb up. Now, that was really just the international world, as much as Americans, that was the international world absorbing the shock and awe of the results of the election. Okay, so there's a lot of adjustments going on. People are a lot smarter than all of us. We're getting together and figuring out what that meant for the future economies and things like that. Now, as I said, about 10 days ago, looks like that shift is kind of over. And about 10 days ago, give or take, rates have kind of leveled off. So, I think it's reasonable. The Feds obviously raised rates a couple weeks ago. It's reasonable to assume the Feds are going to raise rates once or twice in 2017. Now, that's not a direct correlation to the mortgage rate, but it's an important barometer. So I do think rates are poised to probably climb in the next short term.
So 2017, we're a first-time buyer, and we decide, all right, we're going to take the plunge, and we're ready to buy. But certainly making a big decision, we have some fears. And one of the most common fears we hear over 15 years of doing this is this the right house? I mean, the kitchen looks nice. The basement, I can hang out down there. But is this house going to fall down? And is this house going to be worth more in 5 years from now when I'm ready to move up?
Well, yeah, the first thing you have to do is get batteries for your crystal ball, right? That's critical, right? You want to know what's going on 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Only the magic 8 ball is going to teach you that, right? But now, more importantly, what you want to understand as a first-time home buyer is that you're actually building a team, okay? And that team involves a home inspector, usually a termite guy. You can take a radon test. So the 3 most common tests that would be performed on your property would be a home inspection, a radon test, and a termite inspection. All right, so we're building a team that's going to help make sure that your asset isn't going to fall down tomorrow like the money pit. Okay, beyond just that team members, you also obviously have a mortgage person who's going to be a part of the team, unless you're going cash, which is great. Call me up. But you have a title person who's going to help make sure that there's no outstanding liens and things like that. So a lot of people who are going to be a part of the team to help guide you into making the decision. And that's really what your mindset should be.
So I don't think, so you can feel comfortable, you get your inspection, the house isn't going to fall down. But can you help everybody better understand if I go through the inspections and I find, there's some things wrong with it, am I stuck with that house?
No, you're not. So, now, look, we're going to talk base case of the agreement of sale. There's a lot of X factors and Y factors out there.
This is nationwide, so Pennsylvania agreement of sale.
Good call. So typically what will happen is, as a buyer in Pennsylvania, you're going to make your offer contingent upon a home inspection, a termite, and a radon. Contingent meaning if you don't like the results of those tests, you would have the ability to exit the contract and get your deposit money back. So typically, as a first-time home buyer, you're going to put up a good faith deposit. That might be somewhere in the amount of 3 to 5% of the purchase price. You're basically telling the seller, hey, look, dude, I'm a serious buyer. Take your house off the market. I'm going to get a loan, and we're going to get this thing sold for you. So you got to kind of give the seller a little bit of money. That money is not at risk if you exit the contract within your right during a home inspection. Now remember, the home inspection, those 3 tests that I keep alluding to, home inspection, radon, and termite, you're talking about $800 to $1,000, maybe a little bit less, just depending on who you're going with and things like that. So that's an investment that you're making. It's the old ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So you're losing that money because that guy's there doing a job saying, yeah, this house is going to fall down. You're going to give him $850 for him to say that. You're going to exit the contract, but you get your good faith deposit money back.
And all right, so we're feeling good. We do our inspections. We know we have the right to do inspections, so find the house of our dreams and we can figure it out. But if I back up 1 second, the financing. Is it just about the best rate out there? And I know there's some lenders out there watching. Is it just rate? Is that all that matters? I just get the cheapest rate out there?
No. The easy answer is no. Okay, so there's a lot of things that are important with the mortgage. The first thing you want to understand is getting your deposit money back after because you didn't get the loan is a very difficult task to do. It's one of the hardest places as a buyer to get your money back. And here's the reason. I'll try to be brief. It's not my strength. But here's the reason. Okay, if you get out after the home inspection, you've been kind of dating that seller for about 7 to 10 days. There hasn't been a whole lot of emotional investment with the seller. They haven't started packing their boxes. They haven't hired a mover. So it's kind of like, look, in the first week, maybe you had the first kiss, maybe you didn't, and you just were like, you know what, this isn't going to work out, I'm really sorry.
In 15 years, I've never heard someone relate it to dating, but keep going.
So the mortgage, completely different, all right? Usually, if you're not going to get the mortgage, it usually takes about, again, I'm paraphrasing, but you're talking about a month before you can really find out from the lender if you're going to get the mortgage or not. Well, by that time, now you're engaged with the seller. They've taken their house off the market for a month. They've hired movers. They got all their bags packed. They are not happy with you if you are now going to try to get out of the deal because you didn't get the mortgage. So when people are angry, the emotions takes over, and then it just becomes a big mess. All right, so you want to understand that the mortgage is a hard contingency to get out of. So you need to work with somebody that you can trust. Generally that's somebody that you can see, that you can eye up, a local person recommended by your real estate agent or your family. You got to be able to slash their tires if they don't. Just kidding, all you lender. No, but you got to be able to trust what they're going to say, because an eighth of a point, right, or give or take, that's real money, but it's more important to be able to get to the deal with the least amount of aggravation and just have somebody who's willing to really help pick the right product for you. There's so many mortgage products out there. You want somebody who can help you navigate that.
And one of the most, probably a very common question that we get from first-time buyers is this thing called a seller's assist. What is it? I'm buying a house for $250,000. Is somebody really going to give me $10,000 toward my closing costs? And it's a confusing concept. I mean, it's just hard. You're a first-time buyer. There's a million things you're trying to understand, and yet someone say, no, get a seller's assist. What is it?
I have no idea, but I'm going to try my heart now. Look, a seller's assist, basically, the way that I like to describe it, the buyer is choosing to finance their closing costs into the deal. Okay, it's as simple as that. So let's say you're buying this home for $200,000. Everybody agrees that the home's worth $250,000. You would buy the home for $260,000, and you would get $10,000 at the settlement table to help close the deal. In that scenario, the seller gets their $250,000, which is what they wanted. You're buying the house for $10,000 more than what you thought, but that's because you're getting $10,000 from the seller, if that makes sense. Now, a couple things to understand the risks of a seller's assist. Number one, the property has to appraise for the gross sales price. In our example, that means the property has to appraise for $260,000, even though the seller is really only walking away with $250,000. Okay, so you're basically, like I said, it's kind of like trading a car in. Sometimes that car might be worth $1,000, but the dealership's willing to give you $1,500 just to kind of help make the numbers work. That's what a seller's assist is all about. Now, there's two types. Sometimes we have seller's assist out of necessity, and sometimes we do it because it's just what the buyer wants to do.
Let me ask you this. Is the seller going to be scared of a seller's assist? Why is the seller going to be, here's my offer, why are they going to give it to me?
Well, I think it depends on the market, right? So yeah, they're going to be a little bit little nervous. So if you have two deals, one with the seller's assist and one without, most of the time the seller is going to take
even if the seller's assist is a higher priced offer.
Again, in a bubble, it's hard to say. These are negotiation things, but generally speaking, a seller's assist is a little bit of a black eye on a buyer's deal. It's just, why is it more risky? Because the property has to appraise for more than what the seller's walking away with. So the seller's kind of like, well, why am I taking this risk? Which is what your question is. You have to understand, why are they doing it? Well, in the absence of competition, you may represent the only deal the seller has. They'd rather sell their property for $250,000 than not sell it at $260,000, right? So if it's the difference between the seller able to close on their house and get to their next new beginning, they're going to accept it.
Great.
Okay, I would say in this market, we're talking about 30%, about a third of what we see, maybe a little bit higher, are with a seller's assist. And that's going to change depending on the market.
And you should be talking to your lender about this early in the process, giving you some options. There's also some lender credits out there, some different things. A good lender is going to talk you through all these options before the emotion gets involved.
That's exactly right. And that goes back to why you have to look at, you're building a team. This is your team, and they're going to get you from day one to day close. And the lender is just a critical component to that.
Great. As far as looking for homes, it's common to look on Zillow these days, and every once in a while,
Zillow. I've never even heard of it.
Every once in a while, you'll head out there to an open house. What are the mistakes that first-time buyers are making with Zillow, or what's the confusion that they're running into with Zillow and open houses?
Yeah, it's a great question, Matt. So, in my opinion, this is the number one mistake that buyers make. Let's just get right to it. The third-party websites that are out there, Zillow's, Trulia's of the world, they are nothing but a lead generation tool for the industry. Okay, so you want to understand that they have. The reason why it's so easy to search Zillow is because they want more eyeballs, and the more eyeballs they have, the higher they can charge the advertising. That's it. Okay. So as a buyer, what you want to understand is that the picture that comes up next to the property, okay, that agent, one of those agents could be representing the seller. And the number one mistake buyers make is they forget that the listing agent represents the seller. Okay, so the email goes something like this. Hey, really interested in your property. My wife and I, are expecting, we're doing the next 6 months. I'd love to see your place. We can't. All of a sudden, you're giving away your negotiation power without realizing it. You make the mistake and you just start giving information to somebody that doesn't represent you. Okay, the analogy I like to use a lot is you would never call, if you're in a lawsuit, you would never call the plaintiff's attorney and start telling them about all you want and everything that you need. That's kind of what you're doing when you're shopping on the Zillow apps and you're just grabbing any agents whose face on there. The most important thing you can do, as I talked about building a team, is get a buyer agent. That person's in your corner. They got the fiduciary, meaning they have to put your interests ahead of their own. And you got a tight-knit, relationship there from a legal standpoint. That's what you want to do as a buyer. You don't want to be fishing around because you don't know what you're saying, and it can get nerve-wracking.
And as far as getting the information, we're looking at Zillow, we're in open houses, and I do find my buyer's agent. And the buyer's agent goes out there and is sending me homes. Now, if they work for ABC Real Estate, and can they send me the homes from XYZ Real Estate? Do we share our listings?
I think they can say it from PWR too, or whatever the next letters in the alphabet are. Yeah, look, most buyer agents are members of the MLS, which is the multiple listing service. In fact, the reason why we say it's a listed property, what it means is that the property is in the MLS. Okay, so most of our agents are members of the MLS, which means that they can show any property that's listed. All right, so your buyer agent will absolutely be able to get you in the door of almost any property that's listed for sale. Okay, the other part that I want to just go back about the open house is, again, with this playing poker, a lot of times what a buyer is going to do, they're going to pop in that open house, and all of a sudden, you're doing cartwheels in the living room, and you're like, this is the greatest house I've ever seen. Again, you have to realize that the person in that house probably represents the seller, or at least maybe represents the seller. So you're playing poker, and that's why you want that buyer agent to help diffuse some of your emotion and help you navigate this process without emotion. I mean, it's an exciting time. You should be hugging and kissing and carrying on, but you want to do that in the comfort of your own home or with your buyer agent. And then your buyer agent puts up that wall so that when it goes to the seller, you're kind of, well, I'm not sure if I like that house or not, right? That's the main thing that I'm trying to get across, and I don't mean to harp on it, but that's the key to this thing, and that's the mistake that a lot of buyers make.
So I found my home now. I want to put in an offer, and I don't want to, a lot of first-time buyers will say, look, I want to put in a reasonable offer, but I don't want to be rude or be impolite or give a lowball offer. Like you can see the seller takes care of their house, but I don't want to pay their price, but how low is too low?
Well, I think $0 is probably too low. Look, what I say is, again, get with your buyer agent and you determine what I don't think there's such thing as too low of a price. I think the whole offending the seller sometimes can be a little overstated. At the end of the day, you've got to put in an offer that you're comfortable with, okay? And the market's going to tell you whether that was right or wrong. I mean, the only thing the seller can do, they got three options. They can accept your offer, they can throw your offer in the garbage and never talk to you again, or they can counter your offer. They can come back and say, you know what? My house was listed for $250,000. I really appreciate your offer of $50,000, but it's too low. Any rational seller, any person who has a product in the marketplace that they're trying to sell, whether it's a house or a dozen eggs, if they're rational and they're really trying to move the product, they're not going to be offended. They want to engage in that conversation. They want to see where it could go. So, I think the whole concept of too low, low offers, I don't see that really playing out. I don't know a whole lot of serious sellers that really get offended. They want to sell their property. So I would go in, but you got to, there's a lot of research, and this is where your buyer agent and some of the tools online can help you establish the value, and then you make an educated decision based upon your needs and your wants.
And really frustrating for first-time home buyers. You just started in the process. You're out looking. You've created a relationship with a buyer's agent, and you've looked at, say, 10 homes. And all of a sudden you're like, you see one, and you go home that night and you're like, hey, let's put an offer in on that one. And next thing you call your buyer's agent up, said, yeah, I'm more than happy to help you put in an offer, but I want to let you know there's another offer. All right, or there's two other offers. Do I want to get involved? Or is the other agent, is someone not telling the truth? Is someone just trying to promote the sale? Like, what's really going on? Should I just let it go? You always feel a little, what's happening out there?
Very frustrating. A couple things I'll say. Number one, my experience overwhelmingly is that most people don't lie. Okay? Obviously, as a realtor, there's a code of ethics that you have to follow. And I think the vast majority of there's always bad apples in the industry. So I'm not here to tell you that there's not any liars out there. But the vast majority of time, they're not lying. However, what you need to understand, this listing agent is bound by duties, unwaivable duties to their client. And most of those duties revolve around trying to get the best possible terms for their seller. So there's certain ways that they're going to word things to make you a little nervous, all right? The art of negotiation is making the other side a little uncomfortable. So you want to understand that. That's not people being, scum and just not, just lying and cheating and stealing. That's why you have your buyer agent, and that's why they have their listing agent. So competitive bids are frustrating. They definitely can happen. In 2016, we had extremely low inventory, so competitive bids were not commonplace, but they were prevalent. I certainly would think that trend continues at least through the first half of 2017, because even if it slows down a little bit, that inventory's got to build to a reasonable amount. So you got to keep your head on and try to take out the emotion. And again, that's where you're relying on your team. You got your lender, you got your realtor, you got your title, you got all these people who are here to help you understand. So competitive bids can be frustrating. What you need to do, though, is direct your buyer agent to get as much information as they can about the seller's position. The mistake that a lot of buyer agents make is that they assume that the sales price is the driving factor to the seller. While price is usually one of the most important components, it's certainly not all. The agreement of sale is 13 pages in Pennsylvania, and that means there's a whole lot of stuff you can negotiate. So you got to get information so that you can put yourself in a position to win the bid.
Great. And in future FaceTime events, we will.
It's actually Facebook, not FaceTime.
In future events, we'll.
Sorry, Zach.
In future ones, we'll get into the nitty gritty of the offer and putting it together. What should you be putting down for your deposits? How many days for your inspections? Because that's a whole nother phase. Remember, as a first-time buyer, it's a big process, and we're trying to break it down into some common things that you hear, feel, and see. I did get into the offer part, but just defining the area. Like I know Joy and I are trying to decide, we're moving on to our next home, but what's the right area? So how do I know? Should I be close to work? Should it be close to my family? How do I figure out? I want to buy that house, but what area do I want to be in? I'm just not sure, and the person I'm buying the house with, they're not sure, and I'm not sure about my job, so I don't know if I want to plant my roots here. And
I was laughing. Sorry. So I think it's a very personal answer. And because it just depends. I totally lost my train of thought because he was going to say plant seed and he decided that wasn't a good word. So that's why I'm laughing because I'm really in 7th grade. So anyway, what's important is what's important to you. And I think how do I answer this? You want to be able to be in a house for about 5 years or more. Okay. If you don't think you can be in a house for more than 5 years, it doesn't mean it's a bad investment, especially if you're thinking about renting it and things like that. But, buying a house is a big deal. It's an illiquid asset. It takes time, to kind of do its thing. So when you're looking to buy and you're looking at the area, exactly what Matt's talking about. What is your job stability? Is that there for 5 years? I mean, anything can happen, unfortunately, in our life. But if you think the job's the stable thing, maybe you shade more towards your job. If you think, your family or schools or real estate taxes is something that's going to drive your purchase, you want to drive areas like that. The best thing you can do is pound the pavement. Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Remax, all these sites have great mapping. They got street views. They got all this crazy stuff. But there is no substitute for going out with your buyer agent and pounding the pavement. All right, it's going out to one area, seeing what kind of houses are for sale in your price range in that area, and then going out to another area, and then having lunch on a Saturday at one of your spots to kind of get the vibe. That's how you approach it, and you will feel it and know which ones to cross off. I mean, this is something, the area, a lot of buyers come in and it's like, hey, well, I want something east of the Mississippi, and you got this huge dartboard, that's okay. But you're going to take it one chunk at a time, cross off your areas, and then eventually you'll know it. You'll have conviction in your answer and conviction in your decision as long as you kind of go and feel the areas before you cross them off.
And you touched on something in there, real estate taxes. So as a first-time buyer, I'm just comfortable paying $1,500 a month for my payment. How much can the real estate taxes swing?
Greatly. So,
and how much will they impact my payment?
Greatly. So, on average, again, just rough numbers, for every $10,000 that you borrow, you're talking about $60 to $65 a month just in principal and interest. Okay? Well, $1,000 difference on your real estate taxes is going to drive, what is that, $50?
I wasn't paying attention to your math. I was updating technology.
Yeah, I went to Florida State, dude. I need you with a calculator over here. Basically, $1,000 worth of taxes can be somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000 to $10,000 in purchasing power. Okay, so you really got to key in on real estate taxes. Is that right? Do the math, please. Right? But no, you really want to key in on that math. So many times you will see, a property that's $200,000 in one area and $230,000 in another area, and you're like, oh, I should buy the one in $200,000. Yet the one at the $200,000 has $3,000 more in taxes. It's no difference on your monthly payment. Okay, so you really want to drive home the idea of taxes. It's very important to understand. They're driven by the school district, so it's very important to just get a feel for what the property taxes are in each school district.
Great. And I'm working with a buyer.
Looking why this, yeah.
You got all the technology figured out? Hey, I'm working with a buyer's agent, and I just started out. I met him at. They were referred from a family friend, nice person, but they're not doing the job for me. I don't feel they're meeting my expectations. Whatever it is, am I locked into working with them?
It depends on the contract. Okay, so
as a first-time buyer, I'm signing a contract to work with someone.
Yeah, it's in your best interest. Okay, there's a couple things to say. Number one, you want to have at least one person in your corner. Okay, generally speaking, as a generalization, the seller pays the commission, or the seller pays for your representation. So you kind of, there's no reason not to have somebody in your corner, because for the most part, it may not come at a tremendous cost to you as the buyer. So that's number one. All right, number two is about that type of contract. So you can either talk about an exclusive contract or a non-exclusive contract. Exclusive would mean that you've hitched your wagon to one agent and they're the ones that are going to represent you through the whole transaction. A non-exclusive contract means exactly what it says. You're not hitched to any one agent. The important thing is to sign a contract with at least one, okay? Because that way you have somebody who's a fiduciary to you, somebody who's protecting your confidentiality, somebody you can call instead of, go on Zillow, just don't make any, just don't be reaching out to the listing agents. Don't be going visiting open houses where you're meeting the listing agent. So as long as you sign at least one buyer agency contract, you're going to have somebody that can be your liaison.
Great. And last question for you before you sum it up is how early is too early to start the process? I'm in my lease. It's still 6 months out. I'm living at home, rent free, good deal. How early is too early?
Let me answer it this way. The general process, I think, takes about 6 months, okay? So, I don't know that it's ever too early to start getting an education. That's why I'm kind of tripping over my words. I just think this is a process, not an event. And I think the buyers that do the best, and this isn't anything, whether it's real estate, buying Skittles at Wawa, whatever you're doing, if you're educated, you tend to make better decisions, right? So to start this process, there's no amount of, there's no such thing as too much education, in my opinion. Again, whether it's real estate or anything. So, maybe 5 years out might be a little too much, right? But months, year and a half, most of the agents, if it's a, somebody who's committed to the industry, they're going to help walk you along that path the whole way.
Great. We have future Facebook Live. Facebook Live.
We've invented a new company.
Coming up on first-time investment properties, listing your home for sale, and a handful more. Even get some lenders on here to ask them some questions and to help you better understand the lending process.
$83 was the answer coming in from the lender. Thank you. Thank you out there.
So
that's why this is live. You guys can't audit my math. Hey, Alexa, can you help me out?
If you had to sum all this up and wrap it up in a bow and say, hey, first-time buyer, you listen to me ramble on for all this time tonight. What's the gist of it? What's the summary here?
The summary is, number one, it's a process, not an event. Number two, get an education, okay? You want to start understanding that you're building a team. And so you should be interviewing your real estate agent, and they should be taking the time to talk with you, whether it's Facebook Live, face-to-face, that old school weird way to do it on the telephone, something. You got to talk to them, okay? You got to gain trust. The rates and what the cost is of the agent and things like that, those are all important, but they don't supersede the concept of working with people that you trust, because it really is a big lift. There's anywhere between 10 to a dozen people that are going to be on your team from the beginning of this thing to the end. And so you want to take your time, interview the real estate agent, interview the mortgage lender, okay? Have an understanding of what kind of home inspectors are out there and what their reviews are and all that stuff. So it's education, it's being patient with it, and it's understanding that you have the right to have somebody in your corner, your buyer agent, who can access any property for the most part that you need to see, and who is there with a legal obligation to protect you. And as soon as you understand that, it makes the process, in my opinion, a little bit smoother and it should be a fun time. You don't want that anxiety to take over the joy of buying a house. It's cool.
Fantastic. Thank you for all those answers tonight. We appreciate it. He's Eric Railing. I'm Matt Mittman, and we'll see you next time on Facebook Live.
Nice job.